Welcome to Conversations from the Edge of Consciousness. I'm your host, Christine Madera. For me, and possibly for you, the inner world of consciousness has always been much more real and way more fun than the so-called real material world. Growing up, I thought I was alone in this, but I'm not. There are a lot of us, and far too many have no one to talk to who shares this experience. I've been lucky to cultivate a community of friends who love to talk about the energies, ideas, and vibrations that are pushing the edges of our own consciousness, as well as our collective consciousness. In Conversations from the Edge, we share our conversations with you. Welcome to Conversations from the Edge. This is your host, Christine Madera, and we're here again today with Carl Powell. So Carl is a pioneer in the fitness industry, and he's an award-winning speaker and the author of 3 books, including his newest book, Setting Smarter Intentions, that we're going to talk about today, that's available on Amazon. And Carl has traveled the globe for over 30 years, training and entertaining audiences with his unique approach to mindful movement. And he now lives on the island of Maui, which is where I actually met him. And he's continuing to share his mindful movement method, not just on Maui, but via YouTube around the world. Welcome, Carl. It's nice to have you back.
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you for asking me back.
All right. So is there anything you want to say about yourself that I did not include in your bio?
The bio was really good. And I think it tells the story. And getting to Maui, we'll get to that when we start talking about intentions. But that was always one of my intentions. And that's how the book actually came to be, was I was thinking about how I set myself up to get back to Maui. And it was by setting my intentions.
Okay. And, there's been a lot said about goal setting. In goal setting, which is kind of the old style creation mode, we have this idea of what we want, we have our objectives, we put our plan in place and we move toward that goal. And that's kind of something that has been not so reliable in 2020, and now we're in 2021, and probably moving forward because so much of the world is changing. So what is it for you that is most powerful about intentions and how you set them?
When I used to speak on goal setting, because for years I spoke on goal setting, once a magazine called and they asked me, they said, can you do another article about goal setting? It was the beginning of the year. And I said, I want to write an article about why goal setting doesn't work.
Oh, good.
And they said to me, what are you talking about? And I said, I want to write my article around, I've done this article 100 times about why you should set goals.
Mm-hmm.
But let me tell you why it doesn't work. And boy, I wrote the article and I got so many messages from people like, you've been talking about goal setting for years and now you completely changed your mind. And I said, I didn't change my mind. I just realized that there was something above setting your goals that was more important. Mm-hmm. And so when I realized that it's more about what is your intention? You say, well, I intend to do this, and you have to know why you intend to do it also. But you set what your intention is, and then your goals will fall into place. You say, if I intend to go to the moon, I know I need a rocket, I need fuel, I need astronauts. So that all of those are the goals. But the intention is the thing that rises so the higher above your goals. That is the direction of flow of your goals.
Yeah, and I think of intention for me, like I experience things spatially. So for me, intention is like the GPS inside, and it's set to where I want to go with my intention. Like I know what that is, but it's that moment by moment calibration within the larger intention. And so I've learned to work it that way in my own system. So I'm totally with you, because no goal I have ever set has ever worked. It is only ever when there's this big eruption of intention. And then you're right, then the goals are in place. So I had this time that I wanted to go to Hawaii when I was like 12. There was a school trip to Hawaii, and my parents were like, well, we're not paying for that. And I thought, I'm going to Hawaii. Like that was my intention. I'm going, and this is what's going to happen. So I disappeared with a calculator and my little pencil and pens, and I figured out how to get the money for it. And so there was all these goals within it, because I had to do the babysitting jobs. I had to do all these different things in order to get the money. But the intention was what drove it. And it's much more powerful for me than if I have this goal and then I try to set, and it's outside of me, and I try to set these things to move me toward that goal. Like it has never worked. Like in the process of goal setting, for me, the intention beneath the goal has brought in things completely different than what I thought, but exactly what I needed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because the intention is really the driver. And
Mm-hmm.
if you put your intention below your goals, who's driving the car?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. So you had in your book, Smarter Intentions, you talk about something that I really like as a life path. And you need more than just this. It sounds a little random, because you do need an intention kind of for yourself as you move forward. But you talk about the power of yes and saying yes to what comes to you versus being attached to what you look at as what you think you're trying to get to. So talk about that and how it's so powerful for you.
I'll give you my best example. When I moved
Okay.
to Hawaii, I had set two intentions. One intention is I wanted to come here and be able to live here comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was for my entire career, I have been in charge of other instructors. And I said, I just want to be in charge of myself. I just want to
Mm-hmm.
manage myself. And I got here and things I were unbalanced. I was finding jobs that were taking me out of my intentions. And then I could I couldn't find the perfect solution to how am I supposed to do what I intended to do. So I got here and I got offered a job to manage a gym and to manage a yoga program.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took it. And I was so mad at myself for a couple of weeks. I was like, you said you didn't want to manage people, and here you are, you're doing the exact same thing. And I said, you know what? But sometimes you have to make sacrifices to
Mm-hmm.
reach your intention. And I always knew that this is what my intention is. But I still had to eat. I still had to,
Mm-hmm.
survive. And as life turned out, now I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do. And all I had to do was set my intentions and then let the road take me where it was going instead of me always trying to drive from my goals. Just let the intentions drive and I'll follow along.
Yeah, because you don't know. There's nothing that a lot of times things are not what you would have chosen. Because I met you in a yes phase in my life. So you were actually
Mm,
an integral part of my yes, because
mm,
we were living in Las Vegas. Joseph had gotten injured in a horse accident and was really needing a change that we didn't know what that change was. I was writing, so it didn't matter where I wrote, I didn't care. And a friend of mine was going to the Maui Writers Conference, and I thought, oh, that I was a ding, ding, ding. You need to go there. And I'm like, I don't know why, but okay. So I went to the Maui Writers Conference and I told a mutual friend of ours that I was going to be going because I needed time off from my job. And she said, oh, you're going to go. You need to move to Maui. You're never going to come back. I'm going to give you the number of my friend. She'll give you a job. It'll all be fine. You need to move to Maui. And I'm like, what? And so I
mm.
came home and I told Joseph, and he's like, oh, that's ridiculous. And 5 minutes later, he's like, well, what do you think? Like, and I'm like, I think we ought to go and see what happens. So we went and we met Claudia, and through her, and we everything fell into place, and we got a place. We came back, and I ended up not only getting a job, but I ended up getting your jobs because you needed to move back to the mainland for a while. So it was a
Mm,
perfect yes, because I never would have put myself on a track to Hawaii, but I met some very pivotal people there, and I really developed a lot of myself there in my writing career. I mean, my best-selling book, I happened while I was in Maui, and never would have happened had I
mm,
not gone there. So, the power of yes, and really following those inner nudges toward your larger intention, and my intention was to
mm,
be a successful writer, is amazing. So, thank you for
mm.
being part of my yes.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing. And thank you for telling me that, because sometimes people don't share and you don't ever understand that. But that's a beautiful thing. I remember back in the day they were offering me jobs teaching dance, and I had never gone to dance school. I was teaching aerobics, 5, 6, 7,
Mhm.
8. I didn't teach dance, but people kept offering me big jobs to teach dance, and so I just said yes. And then I went and took dance classes and figured it out, you know?
Yeah.
Don't say no to things, figure it out, because
Yeah.
sometimes those things come to you for a reason. And
Mm-hmm.
simply saying, no, this isn't in my goal path, this is in my intention path, you miss a lot.
And I think that's especially important right now because as everything is reorganizing itself, employment is reorganizing itself, money is reorganizing itself, everybody's
Mhm.
kind of birthing these dormant skill sets beneath, within them that give them great
Mhm.
pleasure and joy that they would have thought, oh, I could never make a living at that, or oh, I don't know how to do that. Like all of a sudden, these things might show up, like when you with the dance, as yes, you can make money with it, you just or support yourself or do something significant with it, but you actually need
Mhm.
to say yes, take that step and show up to the moment and allow that moment to move you in the direction that you are going that you may not even realize you want to go. Because sometimes I know for me, I hold fairly loose intentions, and my intention is always generally to show up and show up in my highest level of consciousness and to continue to expand consciousness and to enjoy my life and support other people and feel loved and supported in the world. It's very non-specific when it comes to how
Mhm.
those things happen. And so
Mhm.
especially if you're setting an intention like I just want to have a great life or something like that, that you have to really be paying attention to the opportunities that come because a great life can be had in a lot of different ways that are completely outside of what you would expect it to be.
I'm seeing that in a lot of my friends.
Hmm.
The fitness industry is forever changed. That's what the truth
Yes.
is. However, there are a lot of people who haven't come to grips with how to move forward because their intention always was, I'm going to go to the gym, the people are
Hmm.
going to be there, and I'm going to teach the class.
Hmm.
But now it's changed, it's different.
Hmm.
I've talked to many of my fellow colleagues who say, oh, I don't want to go on Zoom because I don't want people to see the inside of my house. And I say
Hmm.
to them, if you want to have the house to be inside of, you
Yeah.
might want to change your tune. But there are a lot of people who are just being very stubborn about it. Gyms will never be the same gym that you remember when we come through this. I honestly
No.
believe that there'll be individual rooms where people go to work out or 2 or 3 people, but they won't be the big crowded places that they used to be. So all of us in the fitness business, we have to wrap our head around changing your goals to match. Actually, your intention was to help people feel better and get healthier, wasn't it?
Hmm.
I really enjoy the Zoom thing. I didn't even know I would enjoy it. But what I've learned is in my career, I have created a community of like minded people from all over the world. And they come in from all over the world, and there might be only 6 or 8 of them, but they all come in with a different perspective and a different story of how I changed their life at some point in their life.
Hmm.
And it's just a beautiful community because they're like me, they're like each other. And sometimes I turn my camera on and I'm not there, and I just hear them chattering. And they talk about how, what I did for them at this time in my life and what I did for them. And I think that made it so much more rewarding for me because now it's become much more personal of me helping these people because they have let me know why. A lot of times when you have a class, people come, they take the class, they leave, they don't tell
Hmm.
you, what effect is this having on my life? What effect are you having on my life? But the Zoom thing has become much more creating your own community. And if you look at it as creating your own community, you're still doing what you intended to do. It's just a different road. I'm finding it to be a beautiful road. So,
Well, and that's a good point because one of your skills that comes naturally to you that I think it probably took you a while to realize is of how much joy you get out of building community and how good you are at building community. And not every fitness teacher does that. Like that's not their thing. So looking at like for you, not for you personally, but for people who are kind of in the gym industry, in the fitness industry, and other people too that this could apply to, when you look at what is it that actually gives you pleasure about what you do, And how might you be able to do that in a different way, even if it's not, classes on Zoom? Maybe it's not directly translatable from the gym to Zoom, but if your call to working with people around fitness is really helping them with nutrition, can you have like a personalized chef system where you begin to create, individual recipes for people and lists and that kind of thing, and education around nutrition? Or what is it that's your passion that you can shift to something new? Because yeah, you're right. And it's not just the fitness industry. I don't think any industry is going to go back to being what it
Exactly.
was
Right.
a year ago today.
Oh yeah. There won't be as many office buildings because there won't be as many offices, because a lot of the big company realized during this COVID thing that we don't have to rent these big offices. People can work just
Hmm.
as efficiently at home, maybe even more efficiently at home.
Yes.
And that way, and for people, they're saying, well, look, then I can set my own hours. So if the kids are here and they're doing online learning, I can work with them and I still have time to do my job and get that in. And so I think it's just we're learning a new
Hmm.
normal. And in this new normal, we have to figure out very quickly for ourselves what was my intention to start with? And then
Hmm.
how can I fit my intentions into what's happening? So that we have to be adaptable.
Yeah, because adaptability is really, that it is the survival of the fittest key skill. It's not like strength. It is flexibility and adaptability, and the ability to be able to change along with the times that are changing and the situations that are changing. So you have some other lessons in this book that I think are really good skill sets or things for people to work with that can help you set smarter intentions, but also begin to work in this realm of allowing things to show up and getting over what you expect things to be and moving forward in a way that's helpful and beneficial. And in case you don't have your book in front of you, your first lesson was conquer your fear. And so, how do you suggest people begin to conquer their fears about change?
My biggest suggestion would put your faith above your fear.
Hmm.
Have faith in whatever you're doing and don't let fear be the roadblock to stop you from doing that. In one of my speeches, I told a story. It was a African folk tale, and it was about a little boy. His name was Miobe, and the name Miobe, he was told, the name meant a person with fear. And so he fought his whole life around, I'm just going to shorten the story, around trying to put his faith before his fear. And he ended up finding out that fear wasn't what he was afraid of. What he thought he was afraid of wasn't even what he was afraid of at all. And so I think sometimes when you put your faith first, you realize that fear has very little effect on you.
And I think too, the thing about, faith and fear, because they'll both pop up, and we have a lot more experience with fear than with faith, obviously. But because our brains are willing to look for the thing that we want to look for to begin to strengthen it, when we take our attention off fears and how we've been stopped by fear, and begin to put our attention on the times that we have had faith and that the faith carried us into something that we might have been fearful about, if you begin to really look for those things and look for those stories out there and look for confirmation that faith is more powerful than fear, you can train your brain to begin to put faith above fear. And I
Right.
think that can be helpful as well as a exercise to do and use your wonderful brain technology to help you instead of to derail you. Okay, your second one was the power of yes, and we've gone through the power of yes. But is there anything else that you want to say about the power of yes before we move on to number three?
Just learn how to say yes more loudly than you say no. And count the times when no wasn't necessary.
I discovered this in myself, like when I started this intentional road of saying yes, or at least considering everything that was coming toward me, how much I automatically said no before I ever got to the place of considering yes. Like there was deep parts of me that was just like didn't even see something because it was like, nope, that's not going to happen. It's not going to work. It's not for me. That's not a person I want to be around. That's not a thing I want to do. And how much of the no pops up first, and then there's this back end yes. And I've had to learn to flip those so that I might hear or feel the no, but I immediately go into why would this work? Like, how is this a good thing? And then evaluate it from there. And so, okay, so yes, yes, yes. And then I might still come up with no, like, oh, it's just
Mm,
not going to be a good fit. But I reorient so that I'm always starting with why is this opportunity coming? And where's the yes here? What's the opportunity? Is it something that I really want? And so that's a thing that you can begin to do too, is to catch how often you reject things before you ever even consider that they might be the perfect thing for you. Oh, nothing is impossible. I like this one. So what would you say about that? And how did you learn that nothing is impossible?
mm. I learned it through life. I grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania. I
Hmm.
was fat. I was dark, which wasn't attractive at the time. I
Hmm.
was poor. And no one ever told me that you could do anything. And I always believed that it was impossible that I would ever see the world, or impossible that I would ever do anything. But life kept making things possible, even when at first, when I even still didn't believe it was possible. I
Hmm.
moved from the farm. I just decided to go to San Francisco on a whim.
Wow.
Impossible, but it happened. San Francisco changed my whole life, and I ended up being in the fitness business. Me, the fat kid from school, impossible. If you talk to the kids from high school, when I went to my 40-year high school reunion
Uh-huh.
yesterday, I
Oh.
sat down with the kids, and
Mhm.
everyone was like, "You of all people, being a fitness instructor." And I said, right, I was never the type. I would have never.
Uh-huh.
I hated gym class.
Oh my gosh.
But it wasn't impossible, because life led me that way, and I found the possibility in that. Um,
So let me ask you a question about that, kind of circling back to intention, because there was obviously something working in you beneath what you believed about yourself and believed what was possible that was opening doors for you. So for you, like I know what that is for me, but for you, what is that part of you that is actually opening doors that you never even thought were there to open?
I think curiosity. I'm curious about a lot of things, and by being curious and then dropping the fear around what I was curious about, then I learned, when you do that, things happen. When I dropped my curiosity about San Francisco, because I read books about it, and
Hmm.
seen movies with San Francisco and the cable cars and Golden Gate Bridge, and I dreamed about it. I never even realized, but in my head, I'd been dreaming about that for a long time. Getting on the
Interesting.
bus, getting on the
Hmm.
bus from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to San Francisco was a trip. But what happened at the end of the trip
Hmm.
was amazing. I had no idea that I even had that within me. But I think that every step that I took forward with faith gave me more courage to take the next step.
Yeah, and you have kind of these stealth intentions that come up because they are something that they're curious about, or something that kind of got, dropped into their awareness when they were a kid and they just didn't give it much thought, but it's been working behind the scenes to begin to call things toward you. So, I think intention isn't always necessarily those things that we are consciously intending, but those things that operate way down beneath the surface that begin to sculpt and script our life from those deep longings, those deep desires, rather than the things that are happening kind of right in the present moment of life. Okay, so lesson number 4, honor and respect yourself. And this is so important. So what would you like to say about this, and how did you learn this?
Wow, I think that's one of the hardest lessons of all, because we have so much self doubt, and
Hmm.
then it's intensified by uh, the media, the magazines. Everyone's perfect. Everyone has perfect teeth. Everyone is in perfect shape. Everyone eats perfect food. And it gives us all
Hmm.
of these things that we have to, I don't like this about myself. I don't like that about myself. It puts a lot of weight on us.
Hmm.
And the very first day that I said to myself that I'm going to drop all of the other people's opinions and thoughts about me, and just think about, what do I think? Just honor what you think.
Good.
I think that that really was the key to me. When I started to honor myself, I started to honor my feelings, I started to honor my thoughts instead of always poo-pooing them or being the, the no person inside of your head.
Hmm.
No, I can do this. I'm going to respect myself enough to exercise. I'm going to respect myself enough to eat better. I'm going to respect myself enough to take chances. But that all comes from honoring what you feel from the first place, from the very core of you. What do you really feel? And honor that.
Yeah, and you have a little sub thing here that I think is important too, is speak kindly to yourself. Because so often the way that we talk to ourselves is through kind of that old parent dictatorial voice, or the coach, or something that is trying to push you or convince you or inspire you, or in some other way get you to do something that in that moment maybe you just need to be kind to yourself, and that's your movement forward. And we're not taught to be kind to ourselves. We're not really taught to be kind to others, but we're certainly not taught to be kind to ourselves. And yet, that's really where we have to start if we want to have, a real deep relationship with ourselves. Because if we're always mean with ourselves, then you're only going to go so far before you begin to, self-reject or do something just to piss off that part of yourself that's trying to get you to move forward. And I speak from experience on that. How did you switch from any kind of self-criticism to really being kind to yourself?
I think the first thing is you have to acknowledge every time you speak badly to yourself. And then
Hmm.
think about, one, is that the truth? And then two, is it necessary? I
Hmm.
remember back when I was 25, I thought I was so fat. But I look back at the pictures now and I'll tell you, no, I wasn't.
Uh-huh.
And two, it wasn't even a necessary thought to have. It
Hmm.
was it was a use. I spent How much time did I spend on useless thoughts?
Yeah.
There were only negative talk that was going on all the time. So when
Hmm.
I started to recognize the voice, when the voice came up, I stopped and I wait a minute. No, I'm not too fat. You know what I mean? Like you got
Hmm.
to talk back, and that's one of the first steps to you honor yourself, and then you start talking back to that negative self.
And in a kind way.
But in a kind way, right? But you talk back, you say, "No, I got this. No, I'm good." You know what I mean? Like you don't have to be nasty to be demanding.
No, and you can use that same thing, like, because I've done the same thing myself, where I've had these old programs, this old conversation going on, and I look at it, I'm like, well, that's not, one, it's not true, and
Mm,
two, like when I look at my life, there's so much evidence to the other side of that. So I'll begin to go through all the ways, not only that it's not true, but also how the opposite is actually my experience, to be able
mm,
to get my brain and stuff paying attention to something different. And then it became easier to catch when there was an old, like, then the conversation became that the old thing had come up, and then the conversation would catch itself and change it without me really having to pay super close attention. So it
mm.
was, and it was, for me, it always works better being kind. So I realized after 15 years. So honestly, and so I tend to do that more for myself now, but it did take a long time. Kindness feels better. It's actually really helpful for the body. So it changes wiring a lot faster than trying to be mean to yourself and get yourself to change by scolding yourself or punishing yourself, or, making
Mm,
yourself do 150 push-ups, something along those lines. Okay, so number five, and this actually right now could be number one, because
mm, mm.
this is our constant reminder all the time now, is that everything must change. And not only everything must change, everything does change all the time in every
Mm,
single breath. And so
mm.
accepting that is so important. But how did you learn that? And what do you want to say about change?
In my life, I learned that that was the only constant.
Mm-hmm.
Things just kept changing, and I had no control over what changed. The only control I had was how I dealt with the change itself.
Mm-hmm.
And things change, not always the way that you want them to. My newest life example, when I had the job at the gym and
Mm-hmm.
managing the yoga programs, I thought at that moment, there can't be anything better than this. Even though it wasn't matching or meeting my intentions, right?
Uh-huh.
It was working. And
Uh-huh.
because it was working, I just decided, okay, this is the best thing. But
Mm-hmm.
then COVID happened,
Mm-hmm.
and the hotels closed and the gyms closed and the yoga classes stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh no, 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 I'm going to lose my direction. What happened? I thought this was the perfect thing for me. And then we talked about this last time. Sat down afterwards and I wrote down
Mm-hmm.
what was it I really wanted to do. And the thing that I really wanted to do was work with seniors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what I was doing in the hotel. I was doing what I thought I had to do, but I wasn't doing what I intended to do.
Mm-hmm.
And sitting home and having that time off, I think that's working for all of us, realizing that, okay, this changed, that changed, this is never coming back, this is never going to be the same. Finding that adaptability in our brain and in our heart, and then
Mm-hmm.
finding out how can I do what I intended in a different way, because this all has changed now.
You have a principle in here under change that helps you with change, and I absolutely agree with it. And it's called flow, FLOW. So
Mm.
what is that?
So flow is an acronym, and it's the F is faith, the L is love, the O is optimism, and the W is wisdom. And when you realize that, when you put those four words together, that is what takes us through, flows us through. Maybe that's why that's the word. But
Yeah.
but when you have faith in what you want to do, then change isn't so scary.
Mm-hmm.
If you love yourself enough to know that I can do this, I'm capable of handling this change, and I
Mm-hmm.
love and honor myself enough to do that. Optimism. We have to walk through life with an optimistic spirit in our heels. We just have to. And there's no other way that you're going to be happy, successful, kind until you do
Mm-hmm.
that. Wisdom is everything that you know. Life has gotten me through this far. Me, Carl Powell, a little boy from McDonald, Pennsylvania. I've lived in Japan. I've lived in Germany. I've learned different languages. And all through it, life has supported me.
Mm-hmm.
And when you realize that life, as long as I am diligent and I do what I need to do
Mm-hmm.
for life, life is going to do what it needs to do for me, just the way that it works. But you have to be diligent. You can't be a naysayer. You can't be a naysayer in your own life. You have to be the voice that says, "Get up. We can do this. I believe that I can do this. I have it within myself to do this," and walk right over change into something better.
Yeah, that is the foundation of faith is faith in yourself to be able to
Mm,
to show up to what life asks you to show up to. I mean,
mm,
it's not faith in something or some other idea. It's faith in you and in life
you,
and in
right?
that partnership that you have together. Okay,
Mm.
so lesson number 6, believe that dreams do come true. And you and I have both lived this in different ways, but how do you see this for yourself?
When I was a little kid, I always wanted to do something. I didn't know what it was. I knew I
Hmm.
wanted to be around people. I knew I wanted to entertain people. I wanted to be the leader. I wanted to be the person in front. But I had no idea of even what I wanted to be in front of. So I
Mm.
started dreaming. And then I saw, that is embarrassing. I saw Saturday Night Fever and I thought, ooh, I got to do that. So I was 15 years old and
Uh-huh.
I, like you said, I collected up all my money and I went to Arthur Murray Studio every Saturday. It cost $15 way back then, and I
Oh my
barely could
gosh.
afford that. But
Uh-huh.
you would go. It was a 3-hour disco dance class,
Oh my
and they would
gosh.
teach you all the dips and spins and turns. And I said, I'm going to do that. I have no idea what possessed me. I saw the movie and I had to do it. Um,
Mhm.
but that was my first dream that ever came true. I was actually in a disco competition and I was on a cover of a magazine and I was
Oh my gosh.
18 years old. And I say it was my dream seed. Once I started to see the dreams could come true, I
Mhm.
started dreaming higher.
Well, and it
Uh,
seems like something like that was really kind of the seed or a seed of ultimately getting into fitness
yeah,
because
all
of
of
the
it, right?
power of movement and dance and expressing yourself that way.
Mm,
That could have been a huge catalyst just in the form of disco.
mm. But just when I learned through disco that I could make the girls spin and turn better than anybody else, I could lead them better. You know what I mean?
Oh my
It was
gosh.
very empowering. And
Hmm.
through that empowerment, that's what gave me the faith to teach a fitness class in the first place. Because I knew I could lead these girls and spin
Hmm.
and turn. And I said, now how can I do without touching them?
And you found the perfect way.
That's what fitness was. I could still teach
Yeah.
all the things that I wanted to teach. And then as I became more of a teacher, when you become a teacher, you become the best learner on earth because you have
Hmm.
to know what you're teaching. So
Yeah.
for me anyway, the putting the word teacher on my back made me have to become the best learner in the whole world because I needed to
Hmm.
make sure what I was teaching was the truth.
All right. So number seven, lesson number seven, this is the last one. So be grateful. And this is another one that you could put as number one because it's
Mm.
so important and gratitude opens the doors for so many things. But so for you, like what is gratitude in your life and how do you practice it?
Mm. The game changer, I was watching a Super Soul Sunday
Ooh.
on Oprah,
Mm-hmm.
and they were talking about gratitude. And Oprah said, until you're grateful for what you have, you can't have no more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in that Oprah way. Yes.
And that stuck with me because it's true. If you sit around
Uh-huh.
and poo poo everything that you have, graciousness is not going to follow you. It just doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have uh, a dime and you polish it and you love it, you'll get another one.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take that dime and you throw it on the floor, you're not getting another one.
Yes.
So yeah, so it's just learning how to really take time to think about all the wonderful things that you possess already, and don't poo-poo them. There are even the smallest little thing to be grateful for. I'm grateful every single morning when I wake up and I see the mountain in front of my house. I'm grateful every single morning when I wake up and I hear my partner snoring because I know that he's still there.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm grateful that my cat is licking my face in the morning because I know he's still there. That's
Mm-hmm.
just that's how he wakes me up every morning. But even those little things, when you start to be grateful for those, it magnifies. It just does.
It
Because then you
does.
start noticing everything that's wonderful. I do that. I mean, I live in Hawaii, so how can I not? But
Mm-hmm.
that's how I started building my garden. There were so many. I walk by people's houses and I think that's a beautiful plant. Oh, these are pretty. And the next thing I know, I was out buying them and orchestrating them myself. And my garden is my contribution to life, but it also is my place where I can share how grateful I am and then give back.
Mm-hmm.
And just finding how to do that. I mean, like I said, I had no concept of what I was doing when I started this. When COVID happened, just like so many people, I saw my industry changing. Where is it going? How am I going to fit into it? But then I started being grateful for all of the things that I had. I had learned all of these things. I had developed these things. I had met these people. And I just started going back on all of the things that I was grateful for, calling people on the phone and telling them how grateful you are for them. This pandemic has actually been very good for me because I've learned so many things about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And if people don't hear anything else I say today, take time to find the wonderful things inside of yourself and listen to that voice that is leading you forward and learn how to listen less to the voice that's always trying to pull you down. It's going to be there. There's going to be
Mm-hmm.
that voice that you can't do this, you shouldn't do that, you're not good enough for this, but you have to learn how to turn the volume down on that voice. Turn the volume down on that voice and you will prosper. You will see whatever you intend, but you got to turn that voice down.
And you've got a great quote here from Carlos Castaneda to end this, and it is, we don't need more to be thankful for, we just need to be more thankful.
Yes.
And
Mm.
that's a wonderful lesson in gratitude.
My best lesson in writing this
Uh-huh.
book was I decided I was going to ask my friends to send me one paragraph of when they met me, how we met, or funny situation that we were in, or one time that I made you laugh, or one time I made you mad, whatever it was that you wanted to put in one paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize it when I asked the question, but as the answers started coming back, I realized I was reading my own obituary. The most beautiful thing in the whole experience was talking about intentions. And then, to me, the first chapter in the book is about friendship and the importance of friendship. And then I read the last chapter, and that's what made the whole thing cohesive for me. Was I talked about how important friendship was. And then my friends came back and they told me the most beautiful stories about how we met or what they think of me. I have a friend who I think is one of the most amazing men in the whole world. His name is Victor Brick. And he's so smart and so suave. And he wrote to me and he said, being around you makes me feel like a better person. Wow. And I thought, wow, what a wonderful, because that was always my intention. Yeah. So when I read all of those quotes, I realized I was living my highest intention, that people were getting the message that I was sending. It was a beautiful exercise for me. I didn't know it was an exercise. I thought it was just a chapter, but It ended up being a really good exercise for me to realize at the very end of my book about intentions that I realized that I was living within my intentions.
That's beautiful. Well, maybe, people can do that themselves. Put it out on Facebook or on Instagram and have people send you their stories, and do that for each other. Because what a beautiful way to really honor one another, to share those ways that we've really touched one another. All right. So I know people can find you at carlpowell.com, and you can find all the links on conversationsfromtheedge.net. But is there any other way you want people to be able to reach you today?
Okay. So I'm doing a program, Silver and Fit, for seniors. The program is free. You can get the classes on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and you look up Silver and Fit, you'll find the page. And I teach some of the Tai Chi classes, but all of the classes are free. So you can go to YouTube, Silver and Fit, and take a class. It'll make you feel better. They have strength classes, they have dance classes, they have yoga classes, they have Tai Chi classes, anything that you could think of. So Silver and Fit, that would be a beautiful thing.
All right. And I'll add Silver and Fit to the information on you on conversationsfromtheedge.net. So you can find it there as well. All right, Carl, thank you again. It's always lovely to talk with you. Every time I think of you, I think of Maui, and just what a wonderful, beautiful place it is, and what a great guy you are.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's always wonderful to talk to you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
All righty. Bye.
This is your host, Christine Madera. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation from the edge of consciousness. You can find all our conversations at conversationsfromtheedge.net. You'll also find links to schedule a private conversation with me or any of my friends, as well as tools to help you expand your own consciousness and explore what's possible for you outside the boundaries of your current perceptions. Feel free to use this podcast to start your own conversation by sharing it with friends, on social media, in your blog, or even in your own podcast. And as always, live the adventure of pushing your own edge. It's the most amazing adventure there is.